Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you are in our wide world, and welcome to another NetHope webinar. My name is Seth Otto, and I'm the Digital Communications Manager here at NetHope and producer of the NetHope webinar series. We're delighted to be joined today by representatives from NetHope, NetHope Member Trócaire, and founding partner of NetHope's Center for the Digital Nonprofit, Box. And today we'll be discussing how Trócaire and NetHope power their work with Box and how nonprofits can leverage AI innovations for greater impact from a Box product AI leader. Let's go over a bit of housekeeping before we get started. First off, let's make this webinar interactive. Let us know what comes up for you. Please post your comments and questions in the chat window. The presenters will address them during the question and answer period. In the hours following the webinar, we will send a follow-up email your way that will include links to the webinar recording, the slides, and any other resources shared today during today's presentation and discussion. So please pay attention to those inboxes. And finally, we value your feedback. Your opinion matters to us, and we use your responses to our survey to improve this webinar series for you and our broader NetHope community. It also provides our presenters with an opportunity to connect with you if you want them to. And with all that out of our way, I would like to welcome today's speakers. Our conversation will be moderated by Corey Conrad, Vice President of Community Impact and Executive Director of Box.org. We are joined by John Langen, Enterprise Systems Lead for NetHope Member Trócaire, Daniela Weber, Deputy Director of NetHope Center for the Digital Nonprofit, Tyan Hines, Group Product Manager of AI Platform at Box. And we are also joined today by NetHope's Head of Data and Digital Solutions, Morgan Bradley. And I will now hand things over to Morgan St. Clair, Product Marketing Manager at Box, to get us started. Go ahead, Morgan.
Great, thanks, Seth. Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan from the Box.org team, and I'm excited for the panel we'll be having shortly. It's going to be a very insightful discussion around tech for nonprofits. We're going to hear how Box is pivotal for two organizations, the host of the webinar, NetHope, and also from Trócaire. And then the topic in everyone's mind I'm really excited to hear about is AI, and we'll have some thought leaders speak on what AI means to the nonprofit sector. So at Box, we're not only striving to make an impact in your organization, but we're committed to creating positive impact around the world. Culture and community matter a lot to us, and we constantly focus on leveraging our strengths for the greater good and creating a better world. Our Boxers voted us into the Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For, which we're really proud of, and we believe speaks to our unique culture, opportunities to engage, and community involvement at Box. Plus, we empower nonprofits to achieve their mission better with $39 million in donated and discounted Box product annually. This has led to more than 11,000 nonprofits using Box today. And our corporate giving. While we do select grant making throughout the year, our biggest philanthropic program is the Box Impact Fund. This fund grants digital transformation projects each year. Just a few weeks ago, we announced our latest grantees that you can find on the Box blog. At Box.org, our nonprofit theme areas where we see the most impact are child welfare, crisis response, and the environment. So you may have heard of the Content Cloud, but don't know exactly what we're all about. So we're excited to show you a bit today throughout the webinar. Work is no longer happening just in the office or just at home. As we all know, organizations are establishing hybrid remote workforces, which are new challenges for IT. Box is a place where you can secure all your company's files and your organization and easily share and collaborate on them all in one platform. Your nonprofit files are more than just documents. They drive your entire organization across your programs and services. They are the grants you are planning to apply to, research documents, volunteer contracts, and board minutes. Those sensitive fundraising information that your donors trust you to protect. The signed contracts with your largest and most important partners. You need a solution that not only protects these files, but also makes it easy for your colleagues to collaborate on them and get work done. Content is your organization, and that's where Box comes in to organize everything your nonprofit does for its communities. We've learned that no matter the industry you're in or the size of your organization or your location in the world, enabling your teams to work together securely and effectively is key. As for our Box.org offerings, we donate the Box Starter Edition, which supports up to 10 users for up to 100 gigabytes. And we offer at a minimum 50% off all business plans for eligible nonprofits. We'll put in the chat link our pricing and further details, but you can go to Box.org to find out more information. We'd love to connect with you. As one of the co-founders of the NetHope Center for the Digital Nonprofit, we are so proud to be part of the NetHope's tech journey today and the force behind how the membership works. Thank you for hosting our panel today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Corey Conrad, our VP of Communities.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Hi, everyone. It is such a delight to be here with you today. I am thrilled to be joined by such a wonderful group of panelists. And rather than hearing, just us talk about Box, thank you, Morgan, for that overview. We're going to get to hear from some customers and partners of ours today and go deeper on AI, which I know is a topic we've all been very interested in and keenly following and testing and trying. So I think, without further ado from me, I would love to kick us off with Morgan Bradley from you. So NetHope, long time now, partner of Box.org, but also a Box customer. We as members and partners here, I think, have a good sense of what NetHope is, but maybe just remind us here at the outset some of the opportunities that NetHope was seeing and the challenges you were facing that led to a decision to go with Box. Help us know why you chose Box.
Absolutely, and thank you, Corey. I'm just going to share my screen. I have a very short slide to just show. It's just going to show it here. So, wrong slide. There we go. Yeah, so I'm here to talk about, yes, exactly why did NetHope choose Box? And a lot of the reasons I'm going to elaborate here have already been touched upon by Morgan St. Clair, actually, because the first bullet point here you can see is secure cloud storage. So one of the main reasons why NetHope chose Box was we are a completely virtual team. We do not have an office, nor have we had any offices since NetHope has been created over 20 years ago. So we needed cloud storage. And but we have a global footprint. And so we still are a small team within NetHope. We're about 30 full-time staff at this time. So we're still quite a small team, and we needed storage and a system that was able to flex and really fulfill the needs that NetHope needed as we grew and as we evolved. So that was really important to us. Another important part is the permissions and access model. So we work with a lot of different audiences, right? We have partners and members, and we engage in a lot of different ways. And so we needed that infinite flexibility that Box gives, that allows us to share files, share folders in a secure way using taking into account the waterfall permissions, as well as the different user roles or different roles that we can assign to people within the folders themselves. And then finally, there was the automation. This is something that, as I mentioned, we are a small team, so we were very much looking forward to having possibilities of automation to help us use our tools to the best of their ability. In this case, Box Relay and the file request were two features that were very interesting to us, and I'm going to talk about them more specifically. But overall, this is the broad strokes of why NetHope has chosen Box and has kept using Box for, I don't actually remember how long, because I think it's before my tenure, but it's definitely 2015 and I believe before. So some of the use cases that I can share here of how Box has helped us. First of all, the membership folders, right? So like I mentioned, that flexibility, that infinite flexibility when it comes to the different the way in which we engage with our audiences. So in this case, we engage very deeply with our members within different spaces like working groups and chapters, as well as Summit, which is our flagship event that happens every October. And in this space, we share both public documents, but also confidential ones, or ones that are not for everybody's eyes to see. And having all that in one place in Box, allows us to do it from that one file, that one folder. So that was really important for us and helps us on a daily basis. We are actively using Box Relay. We are using it currently for our solution for our invoicing. So we needed a process to gather the invoices and to have approvals with invoices. So we've been using Box Relay for that. Another feature that we use actively is the file request, which I love. And particularly when it comes to recruitment, as some of you might be familiar with, we all get large amounts of applicants. And so having a way to easily allow our users to drop their information and we can easily gather in the backend was really useful, and we're currently using it. And just what we're looking at next. So we are looking at Box Shield and Box Governance, to keep on building our instance and keep ourselves secure. And obviously Box AI, which is what we're here to talk about. We're definitely interested in seeing what we can do with that. And that's what we're looking forward to. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Corey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Morgan. And I think the opportunity that you you saw and experience on the daily basis, being a remote team working all over the world together. Even on our panel here today, we've got people in lots of different time zones all around the world. That's an area where Box really shines, right? Allowing you to work and collaborate securely on your content with your team members, but also with your external partners, wherever they may be. And so we have so appreciated, the partnership, but also one of our Box values is to blow our customers' minds. And so for all of you here on this webinar that are a Box customer, or maybe not yet one, know that we care deeply and bring a real passion for nonprofits. I started my career in nonprofit and continue to serve with nonprofits in a volunteer capacity. So yeah, we care a lot, and we want to blow your minds with what Box has to offer. So maybe we'll segue then to another customer and partner of ours with Trócaire, and welcome John to the virtual stage here. John, tell us a little bit about you and remind all of us, many of us are probably aware, but tell us a little bit about Trócaire, what your organization does, and what are some of the opportunities you were facing in making IT and tech decisions for Trócaire that led you to Box.
Yes, thanks, Corey. I suppose my name is John Langan. I'm the head of enterprise systems in Trócaire. Trócaire is the Irish word for compassion. So we are an overseas development agency working in partnership with local development and humanitarian partners in country. We support people and community to tackle the root cause of poverty, injustice, and violence. My role as head of enterprise systems, I am responsible for all enterprise applications used in Trócaire. As part of our cloud-first approach, we have committed to use best-in-breed technology in all our work to deliver impact efficiency by positioning ourselves as a data-driven organization. We're also committed to promoting innovative and agile use of technology, both internally and externally, that are inclusive and empowering for our staff, supporters, the community we work with, and the partners who we work with.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I suppose looking at our tech journey and why we, I suppose, selected Box. So back in 2016, we kicked off a project to review our international project management system. So the system we were using back then was Domino, and in effect, it was a document approval system. We also wanted to include grant and partner management into one platform. And we also wanted to move, where possible, from unstructured to structured data. So we went through the normal process of compiling user stories, platform selections, and we decided, because we already were using Salesforce, to use Salesforce for our structured data. We still had a requirement to manage our unstructured data, and due to, I suppose, the way we manage project partners and grants, we had a very large number or large volume of files related to the management of project partners and grants. And we needed a way of, I suppose, organizing that content, but also having it available within the Salesforce platform. I suppose there were two options open to us at that point. We could build our own integration and maintain a bespoke integration with platform like OneDrive, or we could use the out-of-the-box integration with Box. For Trócaire, the best solution was the Box Salesforce integration. And after a successful pilot in 2016, we rolled out the project grant and partner management solution across our international division.
Maybe I'll just piggyback on that for a second, John. And the Salesforce integration is one of the most common integrations that we see with many of our nonprofit customers, but also beyond our nonprofit customers. And so I think that's a wonderful example, and also just nice to highlight here, because if your organization uses Salesforce and is curious about what that integration looks like with Box, it's always nice to know who you can talk to, right? And so John and Trócaire have been through this process and learned a lot along the way, I'm sure. So I know we can follow up there with other questions. The other thing I wanted to highlight is, John, you're talking about unstructured data and unstructured content. And I just want to kind of flag and bookmark that for our AI discussion, because I think the power of Box AI when it comes to unstructured data and content really shines. And so just wanted to kind of note that one and tie in. I know you're gonna share a lot on that momentarily. So John, let's see, I guess, you know, there's so many different ways you've now talked about using Box and the decision for Trócaire to go with Box. Are there any highlights that you think other organizations would be interested in here? Like, you know, given what you've learned and how Trócaire has used Box, what do you think is most important that you would like to share? And, you know, maybe that's related to some of the workflows you're doing, or maybe it is related to AI, but wanted to give you a chance to share that.
Yeah, and probably looking, so one of our Trócaire digital principles is to minimize the number of platform systems used by Trócaire and to reuse our existing platforms where possible. So with this in mind, Trócaire ambition was to have a single content management solution for the entire organization. So this included stuff that we were at 3 or 4 years ago saving on the file servers, but also, I suppose, the documents that were related to our project grants and partners. So what I suppose, since we were already using Box for our international division, and this were working very well, we expanded the use of Box and pushed for the one version of truth instead of having information stored in different locations. So we kicked off a project of moving our file servers to Box. The Box Salesforce integration in Trócaire was a game changer for us. And then the migration to the file server, or the migration from the file server to Box, was another. I suppose in the past, we had country offices that had lost data for various reasons. And as a result, were keeping back or were backing up their content in multiple locations, which were creating multiple copies, multiple versions, and creating lots of problems. From the Box, Salesforce Box project, staff trusted Box to keep their content safe. And then when we kicked off the file server project, the migration to Box was a relatively easy transition for them because the trust was already there.
Thank you, John. So participants, if this is sparking questions for you or ideas or thoughts that you would like to share with the group, we welcome them. We are actively watching the webinar chat, so please feel free to go ahead and be adding questions and comments there. I see, Dominique, you have one for Morgan at NetHope, I believe. So let's make sure that we respond and get to that. Okay, well, I'd like to transition us now a little bit into this AI discussion. So there's a lot of how our work on the day-to-day gets done, and some of the things, John, that you've shared and that Morgan shared earlier, just practical logistics of trying to have your content in one place and not creating multiple versions and files, and making this easy and efficient and as productive as possible, right? So that's kind of, I think, that the foundation that we're all hoping for and starting from. And now there's this new capability on top of that with artificial intelligence and with AI. And so thrilled to welcome Tyan and Daniela to the conversation for perspective, both from Box with Tyan as a product lead focused on AI and machine learning here at Box, and also with Daniela with the Center for the Digital Nonprofit at NetHope. So Daniela, I would love to actually start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your role at NetHope, and what you're seeing related to AI across your member and partner relationships?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm the Deputy Director of the Center for the Digital Nonprofit, and what the center does in a nutshell is really help organizations with digital transformation. Now, in order to do that, we do a number of things. One is research, and that's research about the things that are coming down the line in terms of new technology, for example. Now, AI isn't necessarily per se a new technology. We've talked about AI for a long while. We've had a working group talking about AI since 2018. So it's not new in that sense, but certainly with the arrival, obviously, of generative AI in November 22, I think, when ChatGPT was launched, all this buzz started to happen, and a very big interest and renewed interest in the possibilities, as well as the risks and ethics of the solutions. So that's why we're having all these conversations around, okay, so what can these new tools do for us? How could we use them, knowing that organizations do sit on a wealth of data, and how can we use that wealth of data utilizing AI functionality, and the way we're looking at it, looking at the different functions that each nonprofit organization has. A lot of that for me is around efficiency. So it's the having to write a report, wanting to write a donor letter, wanting to write an impact story, knowing that the information that's relevant to that probably sits across a lot of documents, data, Excel sheets, what have you, and being able to do that a lot quicker and a lot more efficient than before. So for me, that's one big area of application and of benefit ultimately for AI solutions that we're talking about.
Thank you, and great points. AI has actually been with us for a long time. It's this generative AI step change that I think has really led to the recent conversation. So thank you for giving us that context. And for our participants, if your organization, if this is resonating with you, as Daniela said, seeing a lot of efficiency gain opportunities with the use of generative AI, we would love to hear how your organization is using AI or testing it. So feel free to drop it in the chat for everyone. Again, we'd love this to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to share what you're seeing and what that's looking like for you. Tyan, welcome. Tell us what you do, but also what you're seeing. I understand that we at Box have been doing a number of AI kind of road shows across, I think actually around the world. So would love to hear what we're hearing, what you're hearing related to Box customers and AI opportunities.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm Tyan Hines, and I'm the product manager for the AI platform here at Box. So been very involved in kind of this generative AI experience at Box, and spending a lot of time working very closely with a lot of our customers as we develop that. I think there's been definitely some interesting things that have come out of this sort of new round of AI models. And I think both John and Daniela kind of touched on that. John, you specifically used that word of unstructured content. And I think this is what we see. we have like these big PDFs, we have Word documents, we have presentations, we have Excel spreadsheets. The information is all there, but traditionally it's been extremely hard to get access to it unless it's stored in something like a database that's very structured, that we can use, a very structured query sort of language to get to. And that can be challenging even if it's in that format, because you have to have a set of kind of skills to be able to access that. So what I find super exciting about where we are right now is we're really making this information that previously was really hard to get access to, we're making it very easy, and it's easy for anybody. So there's not that sort of barrier in terms of having to learn some extra skills or learn something like SQL to be able to get to the information. So that I think is just super exciting, and we've seen that it really has done a lot to accelerate a lot of the insights that people are getting from their content. So I just want to highlight a couple of things that I've heard from customers, some specific use cases that I think, especially in the nonprofit space, that have been kind of specifically helpful. So certainly grant writing is a big thing for many nonprofits, and that can be a really time-consuming, tedious, very detailed-oriented process. And it can be really difficult. And Danielle, you had said, like, that information that we want to do when you're writing a report or doing something, it's there, but finding it is hard. And so it's just so great to be able to open up a document, ask a question, get an answer, and it's right there. You don't have to sort through it, especially if it's a long document. So we've definitely seen quite a few nonprofits really using AI to help accelerate that grant writing process for them, so that they don't have to spend as much time hunting around. I think that's really great. Another thing, and this touches a little bit, John, on what you talked about people having data sort of stored in multiple places, and kind of a little bit of like concern. I think what we've seen is traditionally a lot of data has been stored kind of in a physical location on a server, not accessible, right? And sometimes it's in a format that people can't access. It might be just like a picture. Sometimes it's still paper documents, and it's been traditionally difficult to get access to that. We actually do have a customer that they're a hospital, and they have a lot of information that's stored that is really great information about some very kind of rare diseases, but that's not available for people to access because it's kind of in these sort of on-site stores. So it's been really great. They've been moving all their information into Box, and they're super excited about being able to use AI to pull that information out, and not just to answer questions, but to pull that information out and save it on the document so that they can make search and other things better, so that they can find that information and make it available to people. So that's a really exciting one for us as well, because it's really helping make this rare but really valuable information available for a wider audience, so that they can help improve health outcomes for people. So a lot of promise there for sure, and we're super excited about it.
Thanks, Tyan. John, from a very specific kind of nonprofit partner perspective, how are you all thinking about AI? Maybe both what excites you about it, but also what concerns you have related to generative AI and its use. How is Trócaire thinking about this?
So, like everyone, I'm extremely excited about AI also, but probably there is a bit of caution there. So I think AI and machine learning have the capability to revolutionize how an organization like Trócaire operates, even from our internal support teams like finance and IT service delivery, to how we interact with our supporters, automating supporter journeys. And as have already been discussed here, one of our team in Trócaire, which is extremely interested in AI, is our global partnership and funding unit. They are interested in generative AI for writing funding proposals. We already have a large amount of information on previous proposals, projects in similar thematic areas, and I suppose partners we would have worked with before. And they are looking at AI to do that heavy lifting piece of getting that first draft of a proposal together, and then allow the BDMs to focus on creating that final proposal that is shared with the donor. So that heavy lifting of gathering that information, pulling it from different sources and putting it in one location so that it can be used. I suppose from a tech background, data is the foundation of AI and machine learning. And I suppose for us, Box is our platform where we have all of that unstructured data, or nearly all of it. So I think I'm extremely excited about the Box and AI capability around being able to use it for creating those proposals. But I suppose the whole area of governance and that the necessary controls are in place to ensure ethical use of AI is extremely important. And I think that's an area from a Trócaire perspective that we are trying to focus on first before we move ahead with pilots within the AI or machine learning side.
A couple of things there that you highlighted that I think are really important. As you were talking about the heavy lifting, I just imagined myself sitting in front of the blank page, right? Like on the screen, like I've done some grant proposal writing in my background, and it's always that like getting started that can be so hard. So to have that first draft created and then bring human expertise to the tweaking and the editing to really get it to final version. Yeah, it just seems like such a wonderful benefit that I'm hearing many nonprofits are testing and experiencing and working with. Also, you mentioned the word ethical and how that is connected to AI, and then the importance of security and understanding, okay, like you mentioned your content is all on Box. So I would love for us to kind of go in that direction a little bit now, both thinking about ethical AI. What is that? What does that mean? How are kind of Daniela, what are you seeing from the member organizations? Like, what are some of the concerns here, and how is NetHope kind of working to help nonprofits think about security and approach that? And then Tyan, we'll go to you after that around how Box, obviously security is fundamentally important for us at Box. And so how are we bringing that secure posture to how we think about ethical AI as well? So Daniela, over to you.
Thank you. So the ethics of AI and using AI have been discussed also among the membership since we've started discussing AI. That's always been something that, quite rightly so, has been very close to everyone's heart. And that's where we've come up with a number of toolkits and trainings around how you can ensure that any use of AI, you start any implementation of any tool, can be ethical. What are the things you need to think about? What are the things you need to make sure about your underlying data, the output the solution creates, and so on. And we're going to continue to do that because that is a side we have to ensure is there, and it can be there if people follow these guidelines and frameworks that already exist. We're also working with the working group right now on a code of conduct around using AI, which will also create an additional framework about how nonprofits look at the use of AI. What are the, so to say, red lines somewhere that we're not going to cross, but what are the kind of guidelines, high-level guidelines and principles we will apply to the use of AI that we all will sign up to. And that's really helpful because that gives that direction to any organization wanting to use AI. The other point I want to make here, talking about security and also things like data privacy and you know, guarding your information. Organizations already have policies in place around data privacy. It's the law, it's GDPR, you have to have that, right? You most likely have something in place around who gets to access data, what is confidential, what you cannot share outside your organizations, all these kinds of things. So this you just then apply to your new AI solution. You don't need to reinvent all that governance around that, around your data, around how you're keeping your information safe, because you already have that. So it's just using that, then also apply it to your AI solution.
Hi, and I'm sure that sparks some things for you now as we think specifically about how Box technology shows up to address some of these concerns and questions. So I would love for you to respond.
Yeah, so Daniela, you absolutely, hit the nail on the head with the comment around, making sure that you have kind of the data set up properly, and you don't need to build a whole new system on top of that. And instead make sure that you're controlling your data the way you want, and then AI just, uses that same set. And that's very much, kind of the direction that we took at Box. Is we already have these permissions and these systems set up to help control access to data. And so AI respects that. And then on top of that, it adds, additional kind of security and safety, procedures on top of that. So it's really important. I think what we've seen from a lot of customers is, one, they want to be able to have control over who uses AI on their content and how. And so I think that's super important, because it's not always like everybody gets to do everything on all content. So really allowing people to control that access is really important. Definitely security is super key. We know a lot of customers have, work all over the world. And I think, John, you had mentioned you have many people who are on the ground in places that in some cases are not entirely safe. So it's really important that we guard that data to make sure that those people doing that work, are safe and have access to the information that they need, and they don't have to worry about it somehow leaking or anything. So we've definitely, thought a lot about that as we've built Box AI, to make sure that not only are we using all the same kind of security that Box has, but we're also thinking about, what can we do on top of that? So I think it's not as big a deal now, but certainly when generative AI first came out, there was this huge concern about, are they training on my data? Is my data going to leak? And that is something that people were concerned about. And so we definitely took a stand of like, hey, no, we're never going to train on your data. And in fact, we made, at least for me, kind of a painful product decision, but it was the right product decision. We actually, when people are using Box AI, we don't even save like the questions and the answers that you have. Obviously, somebody can choose to save that themselves. As a product manager, that data would have been extremely useful to help me improve the experience and make sure that, we can see, are we giving the right answer? What do we do to adjust it? But that's also information that the organization should be able to control. And so we decided, hey, this is kind of a privacy issue. We shouldn't have access to that data, even though, we can use it to help, but it's not ours and we don't have permission. And so we chose that. And so I think there's a lot of decisions like that organizations need to make. And Danielle, I'm so happy to hear that you're working on kind of developing sort of some guidelines and some rules around like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is our bar, and we're not going to, we're not going to cross this line. And I think that's so important that every organization really figures out what their policy is and how they want to use AI, and then stick to that. And I think that's just so critical as we move into this new world, because it's changing very, very quickly. And that's great. There's a lot of potential, but it also means that, you have to have some sort of framework in place to be able to decide, do we want to take advantage of these new changes, or is that something that's just, not right for us?
Thanks, Tyan. And I'll follow that with, as a partner and founding member of the Center for the Digital Nonprofit with NetHope, we have benefited from those conversations on a monthly basis, which share with us kind of NetHope, what you're hearing, what you're proposing, what you're working on, but also for partners to then engage together as we are moving forward in this new reality, in this new space. So just a shout out to CDN, and thank you for your leadership there. And I do think highlighting that NetHope has all of these resources available for members. So if I see there are some questions in the chat, and let's also panelists and our NetHope friends here will make sure that we can reply to these and get back to you on some of these things, but that there are these resources to share with you if your organization is thinking about how you engage with generative AI and how you approach kind of making some of these decisions. We want to make sure you're equipped. Would love to talk a little bit more. Daniela, you mentioned, I mean, ethics have been a part of the conversation since we first started talking about AI, and that was a long time ago. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how that is a part, I think, of some of this ethical conversation as well, in addition to security and privacy. Would love for us to talk a little bit around DE&I and how, I guess, what are some of the questions and the concerns there, but then also, so Daniela, maybe we'll start with you on that one. And John, if there's anything you would like to add, would love to give you the floor again as well. And then Tyan, I'll come back around to you to share more specifically how Box has approached some of that. So DE&I and inclusion as it's related to generative AI. Daniela.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things under the general umbrella of ethics we have talked about a lot as well, because absolutely one of the things we don't want to happen is for AI to perpetuate any biases that do already exist. So that's about how do you make sure the data you use in your AI and the output you generate does not perpetuate biases, does not marginalize certain communities more. Now, what we've done, and again, that was on the input from the working group where we had these discussions, we've gone and developed a toolkit around that as well. There's a toolkit for everything, which it will be launched shortly. It's called the Gender Equitable AI Toolkit. And why gender equitable? Because we thought that was one of the areas where we saw that women and girls were negatively impacted by the use of AI. There's this famous example of Amazon using an AI tool to screen job applications and screened out most women that applied for jobs, for example. So what the toolkit does is really look at what is the cycle of developing an AI solution from the inception to filling it with data and using it, and to look at what are the things we need to look at, what are the questions we need to ask ourselves to ensure it is an unbiased solution. And while it is called the Gender Equitable AI Toolkit, and there is a lot of gender-specific things in there, there's also a lot of toolkits and resources there that are a lot more general around, ensuring diversity, ensuring any marginalized communities are represented well in the AI. So I think it's going to be a great tool for people to use and make sure, particularly in this area, they can be happy with what they're doing in the AI space.
John, let's go to you next. Does this spark anything for you as you think about AI and the inclusion aspect of it?
Definitely, it's something that have come up in discussions internally, and I can't wait to see the toolkit to help us shape that discussion. But yeah, it is concerns, and I suppose those concerns are coming from nearly everyone that have looked into AI. So it is a big concern for Trócaire, and I suppose working with NetHope, we're hoping there are plenty of toolkits that will help shape our decisions, and that we can make more informed decisions in relation to biases across AI.
Yeah, so excitement tempered with, okay, some concerns here. Bias is real. Models are trained on data. How do we mitigate bias in the models, right? Like, what does that look like? So Tyan, I'd love to go to you now. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I think is on everybody's minds, right? We've seen this before when new technologies come out that, if they're developed by a small subset of people who don't have a lot of diversity, that solution represents that small subset of people. And we have an opportunity here with AI to make sure that we don't follow that same paradigm. So I think, Daniela, you mentioned representation is just so important. I think we want to get as many people as possible in the conversation. So the way that that has kind of, played out for me is I have just done the best I can to get in front of as many customers as possible, as well as several other people at Box, just to sort of hear what their concerns are, make sure that we're representing the use cases that they have, and making sure that as we develop a product, we're not developing it just for one set of people, that we're keeping that in mind for everybody. We also do specifically for kind of these models that we're looking at. So Box doesn't like stick with one particular provider. So it's not like we just work with OpenAI and no one else. We're actually looking at all providers, and that gives us the flexibility to decide, hey, if a model doesn't meet our bar for safety or bias or whatever, we just won't use it. So we do a lot of internal testing, to kind of check and make sure that we're getting good quality answers and that they aren't biased or harmful. We read a lot of research on the models that are out there, and do a lot of, we look at a lot of the testing as part of our evaluation process to make sure that the model providers we're working with have gone through a really thorough testing process and that it is published. And I think that is a bit of a challenge right now, is we're still, like, the industry is still trying to figure out how to provide that accountability without sort of spilling all their secrets. And so there's still this kind of tension, I think, between, we want to be open so that everybody's comfortable with it, but people kind of still want to guard their IP. I think this is where, having customers really push for that transparency is really helpful. And I think there's definitely some great work happening out there, both from kind of governmental sources, like both the US and the EU definitely have been working on developing some pretty good regulations around AI, but there's also been kind of some groups, industry groups, and also kind of customer groups that have come together to try and drive that conversation. And I think that's all really important. We keep track of that. I read everything that comes out that I can, or to make sure that we are really understanding that and staying on top of it. And I think it's going to get better, because I think people are seeing the concerns and hearing what people are saying. And so I think these models are going to improve, and we'll continue to make sure that we're developing things in a way that helps everybody.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to move to that and invite our participants. Yes, thank you, Seth. Please share your questions. We'll start working through those now. So one of the questions comes specifically on this use case of writing grant proposals. How can I use AI to write a grant proposal? This person gives a specific example on extractive industries in LMIC, and then follows up with, companies to respect human rights. So I'll open that to the panel first, and then I have seen some neat examples here, so I'm happy to follow on or take that question if our panelists don't have an example. John, I think this was something you specifically talked about. Would you like to give an example of how you've seen AI useful in writing a grant proposal?
Not in writing a grant proposal, but I have seen, I suppose, people using OpenAI to help shape a proposal. And the challenge with OpenAI is OpenAI doesn't have access to all of, I suppose, the knowledge that Trócaire would have within our Box environment. So a proposal that is generated from OpenAI is a very generic proposal that pull information that is publicly available. But I think the power of generative AI, especially in proposal writing, is to be able to actually look at proposal that Trócaire would have created for that donor in the past, look at the project that we have worked in a similar thematic area, and also partners we might have worked with. And if that information was available to an AI platform, then that first draft of the proposal would be so much more powerful than publicly available information from a Trócaire perspective. So I suppose that's the challenge. I know members in Trócaire have played around with OpenAI but because you're limited to what is publicly available, and also I suppose it is public, it's not a Trócaire proposal as such, so it's not speaking from a Trócaire perspective. It's not it's a generic proposal that wouldn't be very successful, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, so I think this is a wonderful example and a precisely where Box AI on your content, if you're on Box, could be really useful. So to what you said, John, you've got, let's imagine last year's annual report, and you have a prompt for a specific grant application, and you could ask Box AI to complete this application prompt based on last year's annual report, for example, and it would take a first pass and do that for you. I have seen that. I've seen that happen and work. And so, yeah, this isn't the future. Like, this is now and is possible. I don't know, Tyan, if there's anything else you'd like to share on that specific example.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are seeing, you know, a lot of nonprofits, you know, use that kind of ability to find that information and fill it out. I agree, John, like we haven't quite gotten there yet in the full, like, hey, here's a bunch of information, now create a grant proposal. I think we're getting very close to that. And I think one of the big things is just being able to pull that information across multiple documents, which I think we've got some, you know, the industry has definitely, the AI industry has developed, you know, some solutions now for how to handle looking at information across really large amounts. So I think we're getting to that point. But I think the other thing to always remember with AI and with something like this, where you want to like take a bunch of information and create a grant proposal, is AI is a tool. It's not the whole solution. And so I think, you know, in this case, it may be that, hey, you want to use something that sort of defines, this is roughly what, you know, a template, like this is roughly what we want our grant proposal to look like. And these are the requirements that come from the organization that we're submitting to. And here's the information that you want to start with. And so I think we have to get better about figuring out how to sort of join all of that together, and make it, you know, sort of one cohesive thing, so that it's not like I'm doing one thing over here that's in AI, I'm doing this other thing over here in this other space. So continuing to sort of look at that. And I think that's just, as people evolve and get more comfortable with the use of this technology, I think we'll definitely see more of that happening.
Another example that I've seen that's quite powerful is related to marketing. Like, here's the 20-page plus annual report. Turn this into a social media post. And like asking that, like, what was, summarize this? What are the, you know, if this had to be in 3 bullet points, like what would they be? And then add some emojis, right? Like, I've seen that example. And so I think particularly for our teams when we're under-resourced and bandwidth constrained, and anything that can help take that heavy lift, that first draft, and then you can tweak and edit, some real opportunities there. We've got some more questions in the chat. Let's see. Do we see a phase where we could successfully integrate various AI models to meet our requirement if we're unable to find it in a specific one?
Ah, that is a great question. I'd love to tackle that one. So yeah, I mean, right now we're definitely seeing sort of a one-size-fits-all approach. And I just don't think that that's going to be what we see going forward. I think definitely we are going to see exactly what you're talking about in this question, is people are going to start picking and choosing from different models or different kind of configurations around each model to really help customize that experience for whatever they're doing. Because you can imagine, if you're working in some life sciences space, maybe a generic model doesn't understand all of the terminology. So for that particular piece, you might want to use a model that's, you know, understands that kind of terminology a little more, has been trained a little more in kind of like scientific or medical documentation. But if you're really more in a marketing space, you want to use a model that is more trained on that kind of terminology, or legal. So I think we're starting to see more of that, so that there's kind of these more specialized models. And we are also seeing a little more fine tuning, where people will take sort of these base models and then train it a little more on their personal content, so that it not only understands kind of everything that base model understands, but it also understands their specific content. That one we haven't seen as much, because certainly there's some, I think, privacy and access issues that people have to sort out through that, just to make sure, like, hey, how do we make sure that the answer only shows things that person has permission to? But we're seeing a lot of development. And actually, if you'd asked me a few months ago if we would be that far along, I would have said no. We're like years away from that. But it's moving so rapidly. And I think, that's definitely the direction that Box is going, is like, hey, we have a one solution for people who just want to use it and they don't want to like think about it. But we're definitely moving towards like, hey, let's let you kind of customize a little bit so that you can choose in this particular context which model you want to use or how you want it set up, so that you can do a little bit of that customization. And I think that's going to be really, really powerful in the future.
Thanks, Tyan. Yeah, I think similar to how Box, integrates really well with Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, all the different things you use when it comes to AI models. Being able to support customers and picking and choosing sounds like it's going to be important. Another question, does Box interact with third-party AI, meaning that there's some data sent to and from a secondary company?
So yes, we're very careful about how that is done. We have quite a heavy security, legal, and compliance review process before we do that. And then, of course, we apply the highest level of security. Everything's encrypted, that sort of stuff, along the way, to make sure that that data is really careful about how it's being used, and you don't have to worry about it getting leaked or anything happening. We also don't send like everything. We have a lot of, and this is pretty standard, I think, across the industry, is instead of sending like an entire document, everybody's starting to sort of pre-process and find the pieces of that document that are the most relevant, and then just sending that. And again, making sure that that's done safely. We do know that there are customers out there who, that's not good enough. They don't want their content to leave Box at all. And so I think, we're definitely exploring ways to make sure that that option is available too for those customers who want that. And I think we're just going to see that more in general. And this comes with part of that, like being able to control how AI is used at your organization. And so we're definitely going to see more of that across the way, where people will be able to kind of control more specifically what happens and what models people use and where.
Awesome. Well, I know we're in our final minute here together. John, there was a question on how long your implementation with Box took from planning until fixing bugs. I don't know if that's a quick answer. Do you know how long it took you?
It is, yeah. So we split, when we were rolling it out, we split our process into domains, and then we use an agile approach, and we did 2-week sprints. So we did the complete development in about 8 weeks. We had 4 domains, 2-week sprints, 8, and then we did testing, training. So 8 weeks for the build, and probably we spent another 4 to 6 weeks on testing, training, and then live with no bugs.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you again so much to our panelists. Thank you, NetHope, for facilitating and hosting this webinar. We are excited to see many of you at NetHope Summit in October. Box is a proud sponsor of that event. And so thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening.
Thank you so much, Corey, and thank you, Box, and thank you, Trócaire, for being here and being present and for sharing so much of your wisdom with us. Just want to remind everyone that this webinar series needs your voice. You can help us improve this vital resource for the NetHope community by filling out our satisfaction survey. The link to the survey is in the chat, or it soon will be. And we'll open a new tab in your browser with a link to the survey as well. It will also be in our follow-up email and on the webinar landing page at nethope.org. And there will be a follow-up email coming your way in the next few hours with links to the webinar recording, the slides, other resources shared during today's presentation and discussion, and an opportunity to connect with the presenters if you'd like to. So on behalf of our presenters and NetHope, we wish you a great rest of your day wherever you are in our wide world, and thank you so much. Bye, everyone.